Now we're going to talk about possessive suffixes. In Turkish, if you want to form a phrase like my house, you add one of a set of endings called possessive suffixes directly to the noun that is being possessed. Let's take a look. Let's say you want to say the phrase my mother. We'll start with the Turkish word for mother, anne. If you want to say my mother, you're going to choose the first person singular form of the possessive suffix to attach right to the end of the word anne, mother. So we see that our first person singular possessive suffix is m. So to say my mother, we simply say annem. This word all by itself encompasses the phrase my mother. If you want to emphasize that it's my mother as opposed to your mother, or clarify that it's my mother, you have the option of adding the Turkish personal pronoun my, benim, in the genitive before the word annem. So optional, benim annem, my mother, or simply annem, my mother. What if you want to add a possessive suffix to a noun that ends with a consonant? Okay, so anne ends with a vowel. What if you want to add a possessive suffix to a noun that ends in a consonant, like ev, Turkish word for house, ev? Well, of course, to express my house, you're going to use the same first person singular possessive suffix, m. Ha! But Turkish does not like to have two consonants next to each other. So we have talked in the past about buffer consonants. Now we're going to have something that's we can almost think of as a buffer vowel. It's going to follow the same rules of four-way vowel harmony that you've learned elsewhere. So for ev, we're going to look, we have four options: im, and The rules of four-way vowel harmony tell us that for ev, we're going to use im. Evim, my house. Now, although this single word, evim, means my house all by itself, you want to emphasize it's my house, you can also, again, add benim. So the personal pronoun ben in the genitive, my house. Benim evim, or simply evim. Let's move on to the second person. Again, let's say we want to say your mother, your singular, your informal mother. Anne, start with the Turkish word for mother, and simply add ne, the possessive suffix for the second person singular, ne. Annen. Annen by itself means your mother, your singular informal mother. If you want to stress that it's your mother, you have the option, as we did with benim, of adding the personal pronoun in the genitive. So sen means you, singular, or you informal in Turkish. So senin, senin annen, your mother. But again, just annen already carries the meaning of your mother. Let's see what happens when we are attaching a possessive suffix to a vowel that ends in a consonant. So as we saw up here, let's take ev, Turkish word for house. We want to say your house. We are going to add the possessive suffix for the second person singular, ne. But again, we're going to buffer it by choosing the vowel that corresponds best with e according to the rules of four-way vowel harmony. So we have in, un, and un. For ev, we're going to choose in. So evin, your house. Now, although evin all by itself means your house, if you want to stress that it's your house, you can say senin evin, your house, or simply evin. Let's move on to the third person, where we'll see something slightly different going on, but it's still pretty simple. Okay, let's say we want to say his, her, or its mother. Start with the Turkish word for mother again, anne. And we see that our third person singular possessive ending is i, U or U, depending on the rules of four-way vowel harmony. Okay, so our knowledge of four-way vowel harmony tells us we would choose I for anne. Anne, I. Uh-oh. Turkish does not like to see two vowels next to each other. So, for third-person possessive suffixes, we are going to insert a buffer consonant, in this case, se. So, if you want to say his, her, or its mother, you're going to say annesi. Annesi. Annesi by itself means his, her, or its mother. If you want to specify, okay, so if you want to emphasize that his mother or her mother, you can add an optional onun, like we did with benim and senin, or you can add someone's name or a noun in the genitive. So, for example, if you want to say it's Mehmet's mother, you could have Mehmet in the genitive, Mehmedin. Mehmedin annesi, Mehmet's mother. Let's see what happens when we attach a third-person singular possessive suffix to a vowel that ends in a consonant, okay? So we'll use our standby, ev, house, okay? Ev. Well, for anne, we had to add this buffer s, this buffer se, between the in anne and the I in the possessive suffix. But for ev, we don't have this problem because ev ends in a consonant. So we're just going to go to our chart where you see third person singular possessive suffix, choice of I, U, and U. For ev, we're going to choose I. So evi means his, her, or its house. As we saw with annesi, if you want to stress that it's his house or her house, you can say onun evi. Or if you want to specify that the house belongs to someone, you can put a noun or proper noun in the genitive, as we have here, Mehmedin evi. These two words mean Mehmet's house. Let's move on to the plural. Let's say we want to say our mother. Start again with the word for mother, anne. This time, we are going, as we did with the first person singular, to notice that we don't need a buffer vowel because anne already ends in a vowel. So we're just going to add the version of the plural first person possessive suffix that agrees best with the final vowel in anne. You see we have four versions: mis, ms, mus, and mus. For anne, we're going to choose mis. And you see we have no need for the buffer vowel here because anne already ends in a vowel. So our mother, anne mis. And again, if we want to stress that it's our mother, we can have the option, but we don't have to, add the personal pronoun in the genitive. So our, bizim, our mother, or simply annemiz, our mother. Let's look at the second person plural. Oh, actually, before we move on to the second person plural, I want to show you how this is done with ev, which ends in a consonant. For ev, we're just going to, as we have before, choose the version of the possessive suffix that agrees best with the final vowel in ev, the only vowel in ev. And we are going to need to add in this buffer vowel because ev ends in a consonant. So ev, mis, we need our vowel, so evimiz, our house. And we can say bizim evimiz to emphasize it's our house. On to the second person plural. Anne, say your plural or your formal mother. We're going to choose our version of the possessive suffix that agrees best with anne according to the rules of four-way vowel harmony. So we have a choice of niz, nuz, nuz, and nus. We're going to choose niz. And again, we don't need a buffer vowel if the original word we're adding the possessive suffix to already ends in a vowel. So anne, your mother, plural, anne niz, your mother. And we have the option, if we want to emphasize that it's your plural or your formal mother, we can add the personal pronoun in the genitive beforehand. So sizin anneniz, your mother. Finally, we come to the third person plural. So let's say we want to say their mother. Actually, before we go on to their mother, I just want to throw up the example for ev, the version. So we'll see how it works with a noun that ends in a consonant. If you want to say your plural or your formal house, you're just going to do what we have already seen happen with evimiz, except with the second person plural ending. So we're going to choose the version of the possessive suffix that agrees best with ev. So this is going to be niz. And insert our buffer vowel, eviniz, eviniz. Okay, now we're going on to the third person plural. If you want to say their mother, you're going to start with anne again. And now you have two choices. You can either do exactly what we did over here with a third person singular and say anne, move this over, and say anne si, so onların, their, annesi. Or if you want to emphasize that this is the mother of more than one person, the plurality of the they whose mother it is, you can say onların anneleri. Now, if I say onların anneleri, that can mean one of two things. It can mean their mother, so multiple them, but only one mother. Or it can also mean their mothers, so two different people with two different mothers. Onların anneleri, their mothers. It is true for all of our possessive suffixes that if the object possessed is in the plural, you're going to insert the plural before the possessive suffix. So for example, if you want to say my houses, we saw for my house it was benim evim. If you want to say my houses, we're going to say optional benim, ev, then the plural suffix, ler, and then finally the possessive suffix, im. So evlerim, my houses, or benim evlerim.